Welcome to our guide on mastering the work and activities section of your AMCAS application for medical school. Today we're going to go through a bunch of valuable information and things to keep in mind when filling out this portion of your primary application, and then building upon that I will go through 3 of my personal work and activities descriptions that I used to apply to medical school last cycle and that got me accepted to multiple programs. Out of the 3 work and activities descriptions of mine that we will go through, the very last one was actually one of my most meaningful experiences, and so I will talk further about that explanation that I gave. Before we get into specifics, let's understand why the work and activities section is so vital. This section offers admissions committees insights into your extracurricular experiences, shaping their initial impression of you. Remember that first impressions matter, so it's essential to dedicate serious effort to crafting compelling entries here. Now let's navigate the AMCAS work and activity categories. There are currently 19 categories that you can select for your activities, which I personally think is awesome because now you don't have to go and make sure that you have every single one checked off by an experience. Because you can only put 15 things on this section, it literally means that you cannot fill all 19 categories, therefore making it all the more important to select those that are meaningful to you. We have artistic endeavors, community service and volunteering, medical, clinical, community service, volunteering, not medical, not clinical, conferences attended, extracurricular activities, hobbies, honors or awards or recognitions, intercollegiate athletics, leadership not listed elsewhere, military service, other, paid employment, medical or clinical, paid employment not medical, not clinical, physician shadowing or clinical observation, presentations or posters, publications, research or lab experience, social justice or advocacy experiences, teaching or tutoring or teaching assistant experiences. Now remember, there's a strict character limit on these work and activities descriptions of 700 characters, so brevity is key. You want to make sure that you provide enough details about who you worked with, what your responsibilities included, if there were any honors or awards or recognitions, or if there was a title that went with what you did, while also telling enough to show the admissions committee what character traits and skills you developed during this experience. Differentiating between completed activities and anticipated activities is very important. Here you want to make sure that you list completed activities as those that you have already concluded, and anticipated activities as those you plan to do after you applied to medical school. Now I know many of us are in the same boat of having activities that we have been doing and plan to keep doing after we apply to medical school. In this situation, it's very important to differentiate how many hours you've completed before applying to medical school and how many more you anticipate getting. Also, here's a little secret that I found out from talking to a lot of admissions committees and just recently applying this cycle. A lot of admissions committees are changing up how they do things, and so if you get an interview offer in the late fall or the early spring of your application cycle, you are likely to get a document that asks for updates on your hours. This means it's very important to keep your anticipated hours as accurate as possible, because if schools ask for updates, you don't want a huge discrepancy in how many you anticipated versus how many you had completed, because that doesn't look great. Now let's talk about how to select your most meaningful experiences for the AMCAS work and activities section. These should be things that change your perspective on medicine or influence the way that you see the world or played a big part in your self-growth. Try to make one of these things medicine related, as AMCAS allows you to elaborate further on your most meaningful experiences with another 1,325 characters. Also, another tip is think about experiences where you had really impactful stories and think about writing those in your descriptions. Crafting effective entries for your work and activities section is a careful balance between showing and telling. A lot of pre-med advisors will tell you to show rather than tell through stories that show what kind of characteristics and person you are. While this is great, there are some things that simply just need to be told. So if I enjoy volunteering and working with kids at the local community center and playing games, sometimes I can just say that and it's easy to believe. I don't need to go into a huge story about how I played kickball for 3 hours with a handful of students and it brought smiles to everybody's faces and we all got ice cream afterwards. I honestly think it's just as believable if I tell you that I enjoy that experience and doing it regularly as a volunteer. But on the other hand, there are some things that you want to show rather than just explicitly say. These things include a lot of character traits related to medicine. If you're trying to convey that you are a very dedicated person that follows through on commitments and is responsible, timely, and organized, these things are very hard to simply just list and convince an admissions committee are true. But if you have experiences where you had to show these things to be successful, then by telling those stories, they will understand that. So if you talk about how you worked on a healthcare floor in a hospital with nurses, physicians, and patients, then they'll know that you have to be good at juggling many things at one time and adapting your communication style. You don't specifically need to say that you have developed those skills. Same thing with being a TA or a tutor. If you talk about individual experiences with students, then admissions committees will know that you not only know how to effectively learn information, but also adapt your communication style to teach others. So keep these things in mind when we go through my personal work and activities descriptions in just a minute. In conclusion, the work and activities section of AMCAS allows you to show admissions committee who you are as a person beyond just your personal statement. Invest time and effort into crafting compelling stories to provide a holistic view of yourself to admissions committees. This is really your time to shine and talk about all the things that you're passionate about that you weren't able to put on your personal statement. Some of these are a little bit difficult to memorize, so I'm just going to read them straight from a Google Doc. This first experience that I'm going to go through is a research publication that I got with an orthopedic surgeon and some med students and some residents. I had previously shadowed this surgeon, which I also put in my working activities. From this experience, I feel like I learned a lot about how clinical and translational research play a large role in improving the treatment options for patients as well as their post-operative recovery plans. Now I'm going to read the description word for word, but I'm going to exclude names and titles just for the sake of privacy. I'm working with Dr. Name on a research paper that was recently submitted for publication. We took a look at specific foot deformity for orthopedic patients from a technical perspective using two very long orthopedic terms. My responsibilities on the project include preparing the abstract and images for submission. I've also been a main point of communication for the entire team and the department research coordinator. Learning the intricate research synthesis and submission process is challenging and has required novel solutions to obstacles. I've also gathered many reference papers and created submission forms for the project. Now, while this description didn't have any significant story in it, if I had selected it as one of my most meaningful, I would have so many things that I could talk about. And because this caught the attention of my interviewers, when they would ask me about it in interviews, I was able to show through stories how I have learned so much and changed my perspective on how healthcare works as a whole, and it really went a long way during my interviews. Now, let's move on to the second experience. The second one is one of my favorite ones. It is my time working as a shift supervisor at Krispy Kreme over summer break. Okay, now I'm going to read the description. As part of the original team, I worked as a team member at a brand new corporate-owned location. My responsibilities included working the front register, managing the drive-thru, restocking items, and decorating donuts. I was quickly recognized by one of my managers as a quick learner who always brought positive energy and a hard work mentality on a daily basis. After just 1 week, I was promoted to shift supervisor, where my responsibilities expanded to include overseeing the safe, productive, and efficient operation of all activities, parentheses, managing registers, allocating human resources, and regular problem solving, parentheses. I enjoyed providing great customer service and gaining skills in a new industry. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with medicine? And the answer is absolutely nothing, and yet at the same time, everything. I didn't select this to be one of my most meaningful experiences either, but when it came up in interviews, I was able to tell more specific stories. There are surprisingly a lot of things that translate from working in a donut shop to working on the floor of a hospital, and I would know because I have literally done both. Some similarities between these two things are being timely, showing respect to others, juggling many tasks all at the same time, demonstrating a positive mindset and calm manner when interacting with patients and customers alike. Okay, now the one that you've been waiting for, one of my most meaningful experiences that I put on the working activities section. Can you guess what it is based on the one that I just talked about? Yup, it was my time working at the hospital as a patient care assistant. Okay, first I'm going to go through the basic description that I gave for the experience and then the additional one that I gave because I listed it as a meaningful experience. Okay, here's the first description. On the pulmonary unit, I work closely with nurses and respiratory therapists to perform vitals, wound care, respiratory treatments, and manage feeds. I monitor intake output as asked by the nurses, communicate with physicians, and assist patients in turning, walking, and eating. I was quickly recognized by colleagues as a fast learner wanting to help wherever needed, which has allowed me to form a deep personal connection with patients, their families, and those I work with. I developed a good bedside manner by observing others, asking questions, and constantly reflecting on my personal patient interactions. Going the extra mile to make patients comfortable and building trust defines my work. As you can see here, there was a lot of telling. I listed a lot of the responsibilities that I did, the people that I interacted with in this role, but I also was able to show a decent bit by talking about how I observed others, asked questions, and would self-reflect. That shows a lot about how I learn as a student. Was this a meaningful experience? Yes. So here's the meaningful experience description. While working in the pulmonary unit, I've learned much about direct patient care and how healthcare teams operate in a hospital. When it comes to taking care of patients, it's all of the little things that matter. Knowing that a patient likes having exactly 11 pillows and their parents want to be told vital measurements are key to building positive relationships and improving patient and family health. Sometimes it can be challenging to experience certain things. For example, one kid had a complication during a procedure that left his brain oxygen deprived for about 10 minutes, which caused him to be unresponsive and immobile. His story broke my heart, and I felt for his mother who came to the hospital every night to stay with him. While challenging, I did my best to follow his care plan and improve their comfort, whether that meant spending an hour bathing and positioning him or getting extra linen and items for the mother. Because of my experiences as a PCA, I can confidently interact with nurses, physicians, patients, and patient families and adjust my communication styles appropriately. I learned the value of paying attention to detail and having patience. Additionally, I have developed my leadership, collaboration, and clinical skills, which I believe have better prepared me for medical school. If you go back and look at all the important things that we talked about with the work and activities description, I really highlighted a bunch of different things in these explanations. Not only does it demonstrate how passionate I am about medicine and taking care of others, but it also shows how I've pushed myself to get out of my comfort zone, develop certain character traits, and learn new skill sets. If you want more helpful pre-med info or simply want to know more about my application process and admissions process to medical schools, then subscribe for more videos like this. Also, if you go check out the links in the description, you can find my Instagram account where I post daily content to help pre-meds get into medical school, and you can schedule a one-on-one meeting with me where I will go over any pre-med questions, comments, or concerns that you might have. Thanks again for watching, and I really hope that this helps.